Flashpoint in paradise. Racial pot boils over. Man, just imagine waking up to those stark, genuinely terrifying newspaper headlines. Today, we're going to explore exactly how a beautiful island nation descended into a literal nightmare of violence, and how one poet managed to capture that devastating transformation.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to another explainer. Today, using a really fantastic literary analysis from the Lit Spring blog as our guide, we'll impartially examine the incredibly complex and honestly deeply moving themes of Yasmine Gooneratne's poem, Big Match 1983. Now, obviously, it's a heavy topic, but Gooneratne's poetic structure offers this totally fascinating lens for us to unpack the historical moment known as Black July in Sri Lanka. Section 1. The title's dark irony. So the whole poem is actually structured around a chilling juxtaposition that hits you right from the very first words. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how that title works. As the Lit Spring analysis points out, a big match typically refers to an innocent, beloved annual school cricket match. You know, it's a massive cultural event in Sri Lanka. But a big match is also, quite literally, a giant matchstick used to light a fire. So right out of the gate, the title ironically contrasts this joyous, innocent sporting event with the horrific gravity and destruction of the 1983 racial violence. Section 2. Sparks of History. And as the source analysis highlights, the poem tracks the historical build-up to this disaster, showing us that the violence wasn't entirely sudden. See, the poem doesn't just drop us straight into the fire. The kindling had been gathering for decades. Take a look at this quote. "We talk of 48 and 56, of freedom and the treacherous politics of language." This is so brilliant because it captures the voices of the moderate people in the country. They see the reality, right? They recognize the treacherous politics at play, but as the analysis notes, they are completely powerless to stop it. They're just watching as politicians manipulate language-based divisions to grab power. To really understand those treacherous politics, the source identifies some very specific sparks. Walk with me chronologically through this timeline. Back in 1948, freedom was granted to Sri Lanka. Okay, then jump to 1956. The Sinhala-only Act was introduced. That was a major piece of linguistic kindling that further divided the populace. And by 1958, the first communal riots broke out. The analysis neutrally points out that these are the exact political and historical sparks that eventually got fanned into the raging flames of Black July. Section 3. A Deadly Game. Now, this is where the poem masterfully twists the upbeat vocabulary of cricket against the grim reality of organized mobs. It's a deeply unsettling theme. Just look at the stark contrast we're comparing here. On one side, you've got these upbeat sporting terms, right? Things like promises dizzier scores and brave lads. But in the context of the poem, these aren't cricketers making runs. No, the Lit Spring analysis reveals the stark reality. This language ironically describes mass destruction, property loss, and horrific killings by mobs. The violence had turned into this mad joy for the mobs, who are engaging in destruction without a single ounce of sympathy. Which brings us to this absolutely crucial line. The game's in other hands in any case. Lit Spring interprets this chilling line to mean that the violence wasn't just some spontaneous outbreak among everyday folks. Actually, the game was a continued, orderly plan backed by people with serious political influence. The true players of this deadly match were pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Section 4. The Illusion of Safety. Let's shift gears and look at the educated class who mistakenly believed they could just isolate themselves from the chaos. Listen to this vivid image. In a tall house dim with old books and pictures, calm hands quit the clamoring telephone. As Lit Spring notes, this represents an educated person desperately trying to safeguard their knowledge. It acts as this incredibly profound symbol of vulnerability. I mean, the tall house dim with old books is like a fortress of intellect, right? But it offers literally zero physical protection as the very real violence spreads right outside their door. The poem then zooms in on this character's coping mechanism, noting he is stepping up his intake quite a bit. He's basically seeking refuge in alcohol, just to stay calm. But it comes with this really grim realization. He knows the alcohol won't save him. He recognizes that when the mobs with their torches come within 50 feet of his house, well, he's gonna burn first, long before his precious old books do. It's a terrifying acceptance of his own mortality. Section 5. Neighbors and Bystanders. Here, we're guided to the poem's sharp critique of complicit bystanders and the tragic breakdown of local communities.
So, when violence erupts, where does everyone actually stand? The poem calls out several specific groups. You've got tourists quickly scuttling for cover. You've got the gone-away boy, someone who came back to find his roots but is now just thanking his lucky stars he has a safe haven in Toronto to escape to. You have moderate people feeling entirely powerless. And most damningly, policemen looking the other way, and even neighbors throwing sticks and stones. The analysis emphasizes this huge point. The crowd either silently supported the inhumanity or they were just too powerless to speak out against it.
This all culminates in one of the most heartbreaking images in the text, a victim who falls to his knees beneath a bow tree in a shower of sticks and stones flung by his neighbor's hands. The analysis highlights the deeply tragic irony here. This brutal violence is happening right under a bow tree. That's a universal symbol of merciful Buddhism. And the fact that these stones are being flung by actual neighbors, it shows an enmity that is just incredibly deeply ingrained in the society.
But wait, amidst all this darkness, there is a tiny flicker. The poem mentions some lines haven't yet been cut. And there's a really poignant detail drawn from the Litspring blog's comments section about this. They note how this line, while literally referring to telecommunications that haven't been destroyed yet, beautifully suggests that the relationship between the two races wasn't completely severed. There was still this fragile thread of connection hanging on.
Section 6, A Nation Ablaze. This brings our explainer to its emotional climax, focusing on the ultimate devastation of the country and its cultural identity.
Listen to this incredibly powerful closing line. Screaming across our screens, her agony at last exposed, Sri Lanka burns alive. According to the Litspring analysis, this represents way more than just physical burning. It signifies the destruction of long-held cultural values, the total devastation of a community's trust, and the scorching of the nation's international reputation, as all of this agony was broadcasted across global screens.
And the text leaves us with this final, haunting warning about the sparks still lingering beneath the ashes. Still the fire that was set is there. Will we think before taking measures? It's a totally provocative thought, right? It really challenges us to recognize the historical kindling in our own societies before the match is struck. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this profound piece of literature. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.